Good evening. Welcome to the January 10th, 2024 meeting in the Barrington Plan. First, we'll call starting.
Jesse, you're here.
Okay, first public hearing. Also we have town planner. First public hearing for proposed 2020 zoning and nice. Pursuant to our New Hampshire RSA 653(7), planning board. If there are any language changes, but dated 2nd, 2020, 6:30.
Chairman, just to let you know that date may change. Last night, other proposed zoning amendments, but there will be a public hearing. Most likely will not be heard on the 23rd, but up to the 20th. Try to keep everybody apprised of the date. We can discuss other, if we can, under other business ability for that week. I would just ask the board tonight, when I'm going through the zoning amendments, you can record and then open, close public comment, discussion.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, yes. Totally fine. Read them.
It will alternate. How's that?
Okay. Save voice, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay, for the first proposed zoning amendment, are you in favor of amendment number 1 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by planning board as follows? Amend the definitions and table of uses to allow elderly assisted home care facilities to house an unlimited number of residents in the village, town center, regional commercial and highway commercial overlay district, rather than restricting those facilities to 15 residents or the maximum density permitted by NHDES. Elderly assisted home care facilities will still be limited to 15 residents and have a maximum density limitation in the general residential and neighborhood residential districts and will require a conditional use permit in all districts, including the regional commercial district. If there's any.
Good up to comment. It's the public.
There is somebody online.
Okay.
I see one person online. Are you, would you like to speak for, against, or have questions about the zoning amendment?
No, I'm just gonna listen in.
Okay, perfect. If you have any, if you would like to comment during the public comment period, if you just want to raise your hands through the Teams app, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I just have a comment. Is it redundant to say home care, home? However you guys want it worded is totally fine. We are going to have a second hearing, so it's not like.
The only thing taking us to second hearing.
No, it's, so, and the ones that were introduced last night is going to be, there's going to be a second hearing. we can address at the end, but like if there's typos or anything like that, this is the time. It's reviewed by the attorney, so I blame her for typos. I don't know. Yeah.
We have some kind of legend. I don't know that people are gonna know the definition. They probably know generally about the various districts, or anything, but a lot of people might have trouble.
Do you think like providing, that's okay, like providing like the current zoning map for reference would help?
I wouldn't be able to take it in the voting booth, that's the only problem. I'd only take it out.
There was some discussion at one time, you know, the hallway where you go in, there's people lined up on that wall, put information that's, you know, educational, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, that can be done.
So maybe if we could think of something like that, not, probably not for this vote, but. Probably 80%. Oh, yeah, let me close public comment.
Which language, if you wouldn't mind just repeating the language
higher
that you
than that.
wanted changed?
On the third line down, it says home care, home facilities. But we can get-
Home facilities you wanted to get rid of?
It should probably read elderly assisted.
Gotcha.
You're gonna change the definition too, though? Because if you list it in your uses, it's gotta match your definition, that's where, if,
Let me look.
if you change one, you gotta change the other.
Well, let me look.
Which is the companion one.
Well, because it said we have elderly assisted care home, is what it says in
I'm
definitions.
just looking at this.
So I'd hate to have something on your table of uses be different than what the definition is, and then it's like, okay, so someone says, so what is that? Well, that's not the same thing that's listed.
This line is fine.
It might have just been a typo.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it's not that big a deal.
So the backup documentation, John, is right here is how it's gonna be changed.
So I didn't seem to have that in my package. I had this little breakdown thing that I had that you gave me with this. Is there another?
What day is this? That's old.
Oh, it was the one that was in my package when I grabbed
You
this
blame
one.
Barbara.
Oh, okay, I must have one of those too. So
You got the old one like mine?
if it says home, home on the first line?
No.
Oh.
he has-
Oh,
His
Okay.
backup documentation is different.
yeah, I was trying to read it to follow along. It didn't seem to match.
Oh, all right.
No, so that, and just for the board to know too, as we're going through this, the backup documentation for each of the zoning amendments. Okay, I want to explain it then. But, so it's in relative, that's what. So I think on the warrant, there's just maybe a typo when she posed them.
Are we done with amendment one?
You just have to vote on it, please.
Yep. Motion to adopt amendment one. Yeah, it's modified. Roll call. No, second. Roll call.
Yay.
So is that a yay or a nay? Okay, sorry.
Jesse or yay? Yay for Driscoll. Okay. Proposed amendment number two, amend the table of uses to allow senior housing to have more than 8 dwelling units in the village and town center districts, and add a limitation of 8 dwelling units in the highway commercial overlay district. I'm gonna open public comment to anybody online?
Yes.
Senior housing, number 2.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry, it is right.
Closing public comment, board deliberate any changes? Okay. Roll call?
Motion, I don't know if you, motion to adopt it. And
Yeah,
then roll
motion
call.
to adopt it.
I'll make a motion to adopt it.
As written.
Roll call.
Happy Halloween.
Tessie, aye?
Driscoll, aye. Okay.
The next one is, are you in favor of amendment number 3 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Add a new definition of healthcare facility, which is already a use in the table of uses, and remove the restriction that such facilities are limited to 15 beds in the regional commercial zone.
Open to public comment. Hearing no public comment, closing the public comment. Does the, in deliberation on changes? I'll second that. Roll call.
Happy Halloween.
Tessie, aye?
Driscoll, aye. All right, 3's to bid. Proposed amendment number 4. I don't have the preface you do, but I'm just gonna read it.
Oh, yeah, you can read it that way or this way,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Number 4, amend the table of uses to limit self-storage facilities which are only permitted in the regional commercial district to 1 story in height. Open to public comment. No public comment. Closing it. Public comment. Board to deliberate.
Motion, we accept this amendment as written?
Roll call.
Happy Halloween.
Tessie, or nay?
Driscoll, yay.
That bluebird's beautiful.
I love the bluebird.
It's not. It's better
I
than
love the
tin
way they did it
cans.
in Dover, because they just put all that earth up and covered the first floor.
All right, the next one. Are you in favor of amendment number 5 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Amend footnote 15 in the table of uses, which dictates maximum density for nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, and some elderly care homes to provide that density is dictated by NHDES subsurface disposal regulations.
Open it to public comment. No public comment. Close public comment. Deliberation by the board. Hearing none. Is there a motion to accept this amendment?
I'll make a motion to accept that as written.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Happy Halloween.
Tessie, aye?
Driscoll, aye. Proposed amendment number 6. Add a definition of machine shop, which is already permitted by right in the regional commercial district and permitted by conditional use permit, the general residential, neighborhood residential, and highway commercial overlay district, and allow the use as a conditional use permit in the town center and village districts. Open that public comment. Hearing no public comment. Closing public comment. Deliberation by the board.
Make a motion, we accept amendment 6 as written?
Roll call.
Happy Halloween.
Tessie, aye?
Driscoll, aye.
Next one is, are you in favor of amendment number 7 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Add a definition of truck terminal, which is currently permitted by right in the regional commercial district and permitted by conditional use permit in the highway commercial overlay district, and amend the table of uses to require a conditional use permit for the use in a regional commercial district.
Open to public comment. Hearing no public comment. Closing public comment. Discussion by the group.
Make a motion, we accept amendment number 7 as written?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Tessie, I.
Al, aye.
Have a totally different.
Yay or
thing
nay?
here. Oh, aye, yes, sorry.
Okay.
I thought I did this. but
Oh,
that's no
you
good,
have to
right?
say yay or nay.
Okay, so we go into number 8. Add a definition of warehouse operations and amend the table of uses to prohibit the use in the general residential, neighborhood residential, and village districts, and allow it by conditional use permit in the regional, commercial, and highway overlay district.
Oh, yeah, that's because that's the, that language is different than that.
I noticed that.
I
Oh, I should
know.
be in here. Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
They're pretty much all the same until they get
Get,
right where you're
Get-
at, actually.
get wide.
Because that's for the legal notice. The legal notice
Oh,
doesn't
right,
have to
right,
have
right.
all of the language as the warrant
okay,
article.
so let me.
Sorry, number 8.
Number 8. Amendment 8 to the Barrington zone ordinance is recommended by the planning board as follows. Add a definition of warehouse operations, which is presently permitted by right in the village and regional commercial districts and permitted by conditional use permit in the general residential, neighborhood residential, and highway commercial overlay districts, and amend the table of uses to prohibit the use in the general residential, neighborhood residential, and village districts, and allow it by conditional use permit in the regional commercial and highway commercial overlay districts. Open to public comment. No public comment. Closing public comment. Comments by the board, deliberation. Any motions? Okay, roll call, please.
Debbie on the line.
Tessie, I.
Al, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
The next is, are you in favor of amendment number 9 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Remove the definition of frontage from Article 18 definitions.
Public comment? None. Closing public comment. And deliberation by the board. Comments? A.
Forward amendment 9.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Debbie on the line.
Tessie, I.
Al, aye.
Driscoll, aye. Let's see, are you in favor of amendment number 10, Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Add definitions of arts and crafts establishments, automobile parts supply retail establishment, bank, bed and breakfast, billiard parlors / pool hall, bowling alley, educational institutions, farm stand, funeral homes, golf course, health clubs, landscape nurseries / greenhouses, movie theater, and social or fraternal organization. Any public comment? Hearing none, closing public comment. Board, any deliberation or questions?
Make a motion to accept as written.
Roll call.
Tessie, I.
Al, aye.
Could we back up just a little bit before you go to the next one?
Wait, hold on.
Oh,
can you-
sure.
Yay or nay?
Oh, yes, didn't I?
You have to say
Said I've
it.
been on Benadryl.
It's okay, you have to say it. That's all.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
On this thing, between 9 and 10, you
9.
actually have a definition of lot frontage that's going to be changed and added. So you would have to address that. I mean, I don't know if you want to renumber them up through, because you eliminated lot frontage and you decided that, but you didn't talk about or vote to adopt lot frontage as a definition. On this, right here, that's,
Right, if you want to, that's fine.
I think they should vote on it. If
Okay.
they want to propose a change, you got to propose the change and vote on it. So this, the top of this page right here,
They voted on it last time, too. So they voted on all the language, and then it went to the attorney, and then she reviewed it to put them in the warrant
but you
article.
didn't, just now, you voted to remove this lot here, but you
Right.
didn't vote to adopt the new one.
Because it's already there.
No, the red is new.
What do you,
The-
I don't know what you're referencing.
Where it says lot frontage,
Page 6.
page
At the top.
of page 6. You voted on the bottom of 5 to eliminate the definition of frontage, but you didn't vote to put a definition for lot frontage in. I know that lot frontage, you took some stuff out, and then the red is all added language.
We took some out, we put the other one back in.
So she,
Why would we eliminate lot frontage?
it's in there multiple times.
But wouldn't it be just change?
The amendment reflects the conflicting of definitions.
We removed.
Bottom of page
I
five,
think
bottom of
this
page
is-
five, we eliminated that.
We eliminated frontage. We
Correct.
Changed the definition of lot frontage.
Right,
That's
Okay.
what actually should be called out.
Yeah.
right.
Right, and you need
Oh,
to
I see what
vote
you're
on that
saying.
tonight. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
That you're gonna bring.
So
it
there
forward.
should be a
actually written.
language change as well
Right, for that
to
one.
address
So
that
we're not,
definition.
Because you're adding that
doing
in.
away with it.
Okay.
Right.
Um,
To remove the definition from frontage.
Now, you voted on the one on the bottom of 5, but you didn't vote to bring forward the one on the top of 6. That was-
so the one to, we'll add for the, additional word article, will have the attorney, modify it. The definition of lot frontage is the side of a parcel used to satisfy their frontage requirements specified in the table of dimensional standards or other alternative standards must be the side of the parcel used to provide vehicular access to the property. The zoning board of adjustment may permit by a grant of special exception that a different side of the property be used for access because the site constraints make using the otherwise required frontage inconsistent with protecting the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Vote for adopt that definition.
Amendment number 20.
It will, I'm not sure. I'll have to ask the attorney how she wants to do it. We can,
Whatever the amendment is.
propose it as number 11 right now, I guess, and see what she says.
I wouldn't do.
And
that
renumber it?
creates conflict. I wouldn't do.
Add it to number 9 or add it to the end, you mean?
Make it number 20.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So for a new one. Okay.
Because then it's clean. You don't screw
Right.
up all your numbering for
Right.
everything we've already done.
Okay.
Make a motion, we accept amendment number 20, defining lot frontage as written.
And I'll open public comment. Hearing no public comment, closing public comment.
And you motioned?
And then I
Okay.
said.
And
And roll call.
good catch.
Suchi, aye.
Thank you.
Tessie, aye?
Now,
I just saw we missed it.
That's
earlier
fine.
tonight. It was like,
Thank you,
oh,
John. Thank you, John.
all of a sudden, that wouldn't be in there. if we
Yeah,
didn't
good
bring
catch.
it forward.
All right.
Well, the reason why I kind of looked ahead, because we also have a definition of corner lot where it talks about both frontages.
Yeah.
But it wasn't conflicting. So I was kind of reading the two of them to make sure there was non-conflicting thing. And then when you guys went right over it, it was like, wait a minute, back up.
Okay, back.
Back to number 11.
Yep. And, you're writing, I'll pitch it, okay?
Okay, I'm right.
Are you in favor of amendment number 11 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? To add a definition of restaurant, outdoor customer dining area, and to allow that use by right in the village, town center, and regional commercial districts, and by conditional use permit in the general residential, neighborhood residential, and highway commercial district overlay districts. Explanation, outdoor dining is not currently in the table of uses or defined, and/or defined. Public comment. Hearing no public comment, closing public comment. Questions by the board, deliberations? No?
He made a motion, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Andy, seconded by Bob. Roll call.
Suchi, aye.
Tessie, aye?
Alan, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Number 12, are you in favor of amendment number 12 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Dimensional regulations to define structures under 200 square feet as a subordinate structure used primarily for storage purposes and to allow them without a building permit and with no setback requirement if they are 200 square feet or less, and to limit the number of structures, subordinate structure, that looks like it's 2 there, sorry, permitted on any one property to 2 for a lot of 80,000 square feet or less, with 1 additional structure permitted per every additional acre over 80,000 square feet.
Opening public comment, closing public comment, deliberation by the board, questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to answer this?
Make a motion, we accept amendment number 12 as written.
I'll second that. Roll call.
Happy Holiday.
Suchi,
Tessie, aye.
Ballard, aye.
Thank you. Amendment number 13.
I need you to
Oh.
vote, please.
I'm on a timer here.
I'm like, what kind?
I didn't vote.
Yay or
Are you
nay?
sure?
Yes.
Okay, yay. Okay. Are you in favor of amendment number 13 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Amend the definition of structures to include storage containers and generators. Explanation, current zoning ordinance doesn't address storage containers and generators. Public comment? Hearing no public comment, closing public comment. Questions, deliberations by the board on this one?
I know Jonathan talked about generators. I think it is, sure it's not just better.
By having that added as S under structures, it makes it so it doesn't have to comply with setbacks. Because that section, that whole section under structures, those are exempt from having to comply with setbacks. So every time someone comes in with a generator, especially on some of these smaller lots of record or where the house sets, their generators are almost always to have it somewhat near their house, get into their side setback or something. So right now, you're allowed under our definition to have heating and cooling systems, in there as part of it. So it was almost like it made sense to have the generators there instead of having to go to the ZBA every time they wanted a generator, because other than that cycling once a month, you get, everybody else's are on at the same time anyways.
There was a
Any more questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Originally, we were gonna try to have these as close to the building, the served building as reasonably feasible.
I thought I saw a 5-foot.
So
It's
if
got
you
that little
wanna-
parentheses things on it now, but it's listed.
So if you go to the backup material,
Yeah.
on
That's
page
right.
7 of 10,
Yeah,
number 14, that's how it will be placed in the zoning ordinance. The,
oh, close to the
the
building as
red.
possible, okay. All right, is there a motion to advance this one? That's it.
I make a motion we accept this as written.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Happy Holiday.
Suchi,
Tessie, aye.
Ballard, aye.
Driscoll, aye. Okay,
Amendment 14 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows. Amend Article 6 regarding conservation subdivisions to define and require a yield plan demonstrating the maximum number of buildable lots achievable under the conventional zoning to be submitted with all applications, and to limit density of a conservation subdivisions to the number of lots permitted in a conventional subdivision.
roll call, sorry. Public comment. Hearing no public comment, closing public comment. Question by the board.
I have a comment. I would like to add something to this one.
Okay.
To me, I mean,
Before you start, yeah. And do you want to add it to the backup documentation? Because this is just like briefly describes it.
I want to change the language.
The whole, okay,
I want to change the thing.
okay.
I think Andy yesterday was trying to increase the lots. I think, I understand the motivation, but I think our bigger problem is conservation subdivisions. I think our biggest problem comes with conservation subdivisions where they're dense and they cause problems. And I think the yield plans we get, frankly, I think they're fantasy in many cases. So I would like to add language to the end of that sentence. The board at its discretion may require a study to confirm the financial and technical feasibility under current market conditions of any presented yield plan or section of a yield plan.
Yeah, you brought that forward before.
Yeah.
And the town's attorney said that that is so subjective that it couldn't be written in as a regulation.
What do you mean subjective? We're asking them to do the study.
Yeah, well, it's subjective because it all depends on who does the valuing. The valuing is based on subjective idea to whether or not it's worth spending the money to do an extra 100 feet of road to get the lots, because it depends on what that person can do roads for, what the lot values are. So she said it becomes subjective. It's not a hard defined regulation that can be looked at. Does it meet it or not meet it?
Disagree with that.
Did
I'm
she
not
have any-
I'm just telling you what the attorney said. I'm not,
Did she have any language to help us get at the intent
Well,
of
before
what
we
Ron
did
wants to
language, I
do?
mean,
Um,
we got it, this is a developer, does this
No.
all the time. As an engineer that does, you know, they know what this stuff costs when they do conventional things all the time. That's why they do the lot layouts they know. So they do this all the time. To say they can't present a study to us supporting, you know, saying, right now, they can present, I'm gonna put, you know, I'm gonna blast ledge, I'm gonna put a 500 road in, I'm gonna build a bridge across the wetlands for 2 lots in the back. And that's just nonsense. I mean, you know that, to me, the intent of a conservation subdivision is, you can say, in a conventional subdivision, I would do this, and I would do this many lots, I want to do this many lots in a conservation. And if you wouldn't do that many in a conventional subdivision, you shouldn't do that many in a
the yield plan.
conservation one.
Yeah.
So they do this all the time, and think that they can't run numbers that can be reviewed by our engineering outfit, you know, to me is nonsense. That should be very easy to do. They do this for a living.
Well, see, that's where you just said two different things. You just said they do this all the time, they can give it to us, and then it can be reviewed by our engineering. So that's where the subjective comes in. That was
But
the
he can-
issue the
he can
attorney
put the
had.
dollar figure on it.
No, well,
See,
they're
okay.
gonna put it, well, they can review.
But then you want someone to review it to say if that dollar figure is correct. That's where the subjectiveness comes in.
Oh, but we
That
hired
was,
an engineering outfit to say, they've got us an estimate to build this road of, you know, $300,000. All they wanted to have CMA to say, yeah, that's reasonable or it's not. You know, it's in the ballpark. You know, we're not asking for to the last dollar.
you haven't got to argue with me. I'm not the one doing it.
But
I'm just telling you what the attorney.
I think to say this is subjective and it can't be done, I totally disagree with that. These guys do that all the time. When they buy lots and they do layouts, they run these numbers all the time. When they do the layouts, whether it's worth it to go back to these lots, they do it for a living. That's what they do. I mean, to say that they can't present those numbers to support their yield plan, you know, I think I'm tired of getting nonsense yield plans. I mean, it really, look at them and say, there's no way they would do that. There's zero chance they would do that. And then, you know, we have no way to push back. You know, you say, John, you know, you want to be.
Wait, I'm just telling you what the attorney said. I'm not taking a side in it. I'm just
I would say,
explaining.
you say we don't want to be in the gray. I think this eliminates some of the gray. This puts us in a situation where we have a question about whether that's financially feasible. We can ask for backup for that. And I think that's totally reasonable.
Ron, I would like to point out, even yesterday, in my denial motion that I was presenting to the board, excuse me, I very clearly addressed a couple of spots where you can push back on that, and I'm trying to pull it up here. In that, when we look at it, we have the right to deny based on the fact that they need to provide the burden of proof. It's on them to provide the burden of proof until we are satisfied. That is written into the regulation as such. And it
I'm just looking to strengthen this, Andy. Give us more ability to ask for, you know, reasonable calculations to support the fact that it's those 2 lots in the back are valid to use in a yield plan, and not just something that you threw on paper. Oh yeah, it's
So to move this forward, so we're not here all night, can you come up with some language? We can submit it to the town's attorney, and then you guys can you'll get the feedback from the attorney before your next meeting? Is that?
And ask her if it doesn't fit with what she thinks will work to supply some alternate.
Yeah,
language.
she
I mean,
should
she
be
must
able
know
to
what goes
supply,
on
you
in
know,
other
here's an
towns.
alternative to what you want to do.
So discussing with back and forth with her on that too, I can have her review these meeting minutes tonight, with that discussion in it, because they've been brought up before too, and I can submit this to her.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Do you-
to say subjective, I agree it's subjective, but it doesn't mean it's not reasonable. You know, there's a big difference between saying these lots are worth $400,000, and it's $1 million to get back there.
Mhm.
You know, or it's $400,000 for the lots and it's $450 to get back there. You know, I'm talking about where there's a big gap, where you're spending $1 million to access 2 lots in the back, but the market value is $400,000. You know they're not going to do that in the yield. Why? And the intent should be, if you know, conservation should be, this is what I would do if I'm going to conventionally, this is what I'm gonna do with the conservation. If you wouldn't do that in the conventional, why would give you credit for those lots in a conservation? It just doesn't make sense. It's against the intent of the regulations, in my opinion.
Um,
And I will say that most of
I would
our,
agree with that.
most of our problems recently, developers they're always going to conservation. I mean, that's all we're seeing lately.
Mhm.
So, you
Some
know,
of the yield plans we've recently seen come through.
yeah, look at the, well, not to mention it, but yeah.
mhm.
Can't use
Just say
any
reasoning.
names here.
Recently, we've seen a few that I would question.
Mhm.
So I think that our biggest public pushback is on conservation. What we're always seeing as developer ones, they're all conservation lately. And that's where our biggest pushback from the public.
I'll be
And I think
honest.
giving us another tool to say, this yield plan better make sense, because otherwise we're not gonna accept it. You know,
Right.
Is a
I
good
agree.
thing to do.
I think not only does the yield plan have to make sense, but this is where by forcing the larger lot size, you're still gonna have conservation subdivisions. You're just not gonna have the quantity that's being plowed into it. They're gonna go the cheapest route to make it, but what it means is you're conserving more land and you're not burdening the taxpayer in every other fashion in this town when you look at police, fire, highway, buildings, schools. You're starting to minimize how much more burden we put on everybody.
Yeah, but Andy, your thing may not pass.
It may
I
not,
just
but
wanna
If it doesn't.
keep us on track
I
with the
agree
yield
that if
plan.
it does pass, that'll limit the number of lots. But I think that, you know, I'm afraid that's a takeaway from some property owners here. But I think no matter what, you know, the yield plan should make sense. If you're gonna say, I can do this many lots because I'm presenting my plan to justify that many lots, that should make sense. That should be something you would actually do. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't follow the intent of the regulations.
But
I'm gonna do
nobody,
this, but I'm gonna do this.
whether the base zoning is 4 acres or 2 acres, it becomes irrelevant, in your point, I get that, yeah.
My point is different. It doesn't matter what the, you know, if it's 3 acres, I'm still saying the yield plan's gotta make sense. You know, don't present me a yield plan that, you know, you blasting through a mountain and get 2 lots in the back. You know, that just, you wouldn't do that. So if you wouldn't do it in conventional, why you do it under con?
I don't disagree. I just look at when you increase the lot size, the likelihood of seeing that also is reduced. Because
It's more likely.
no,
Same here.
I think it's
it's,
more likely.
Exactly.
it's
Because now
not,
that
and
lot's got more value.
Yes, a lot more value.
the lot has more value, but you're not likely to see the kind of the cramming in there because we're changing the rules to contiguous uplands in how this is all structured. They have to show that they could build that subdivision anyway in there, and they may have to get a wetlands crossing, or they'd have to show that they could do all of that with the state. So this starts driving that component in there that, okay, now they're looking at, like, if I've got to fit 3 acres in here and there's a wetland that I'm carving in, they've got to make it fit within how that's there. And we all know there's a lot of wetlands around here.
Well, we
Where
don't- but
the
we-
1.8
on the yield plan, if
Yeah,
you're
let's
crossing wetlands,
get back to the,
Yeah.
They
For
do,
this-
But this, I think it better addresses it.
Well,
And
let's,
it actually,
let's
long-term,
let's do this. Let's vote on whether we like the language, and then if it passes Attorney Muster, do we like it? I guess, let's do that.
because it's gonna come back before public hearing.
So
So
make a
number
vote on it.
14.
Make a vote on whether you like the concept, and then. if
So
the
number
language flies-
14, do you want to do that as written as the backup documentation and do this as a new one or
You can
add
you can
to
You
it?
can add it to that.
Okay. So it sounds like to me that, do you want to read, do you want me to just read this?
it in.
Or, I guess it depends what the attorney says too. I don't
You can
know.
read it, and then we can vote on it.
Okay.
And the attorney can.
Weigh in
opine-
her.
opine.
Okay. The board at its discretion may require a study to confirm the financial and technical feasibility under current market conditions of any presented yield plan or section of the yield plan. And that would be in addition to the language of number 14
Yeah, add it to it.
added to it.
Okay, since there's a change, I'll reopen public hearing. Hearing no public hearing, discussion by the board.
public comment.
We already did that.
Comment, open and close public comment.
Public hearing.
You have to open each one for public comment so there can be comment on it.
So continuous uplands, and that seems sort of reasonable for yield plans. That language we want,
Well, they'd be separate from,
That'd
this
be
is
separate.
just,
can't put it in here.
Mhm.
the contiguous uplands component is an important component of a lot yield.
We're gonna make a motion?
Motion and then a vote on, please.
Make a motion, we accept that language as written.
Roll call.
Yeah, bye.
Capello, aye. Suchi, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan, aye.
Driscoll, aye. 14's done. 15, are you in favor of amendment number 15 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Remove the prohibition of any sign being located in or over the public right-of-way. Explanation is that a recent survey of signs in Barrington has demonstrated there are many signs located within the rights-of-way at present and no danger to the traveling public, which do not interfere with the town's ability to maintain the road. The planning board sees no rational reason to prohibit such signs.
For additional clarity, could we add on the explanation? This does not affect state roads,
Yeah, I can add that.
so the public is,
Well, shouldn't we add some language too that as long as they do not impact public safety?
Right, I don't think it should be.
It-
You can't put signs that will block, right, you know, light the sight. So I don't think you should
when
have
you
a
say
blanket.
present no danger,
See number 18 listed right now?
15.
we're
On the one that says section 20.2.5.
It's page 9 of 10.
So if you look at that, it kind of addresses what you just brought up. That's what I was saying. It's already, we're moving to that position.
Yeah, but with the separate amendments, one might not be accepted in I'm thinking allowing signs in public ways that block lines of sight or prevent safety hazards. That's, to me, we shouldn't say all signs can be put in a public way, as long as they do not impede, propose a safety hazard or something like that, or safety concern. You know, so I would say, yeah, I would add that language, as long as they do not pose a safety concern.
It presents no danger to the traveling public,
Or something like that, yeah.
which does not interfere with the town's ability to maintain the road.
Where's that, where are you reading that?
Under the
The explanation.
explanation
Explanation.
on page 4, bottom of page 4.
Page 4.
Different page 4, sorry. Page 4 of the proposed zoning amendment.
Read the number 15.
I stapled them all together.
Continued on the other side.
Yeah, but I guess, where's the language to say that? Where's the language to say as long as they do not pose? We just eliminate, if we eliminate this, there's no prohibition of it being the public way. Where's the language to say as long as they do not pose a safety hazard and appeal,
I see
interfere
you're
with
saying
the town's
adding it
ability
to
to
that.
maintain the road? Where's that language? We say that.
You're adding to it, the explanation is what you're kind of getting at, right?
I'm reading the amendment, says to remove the prohibition,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm seeing the explanation,
Mhm.
says we're gonna allow it as long as, my question is, where is the language, where is that language in the rules? In other words, we take out the prohibition of public way, where's the language that says as long as they do not cause a safety hazard or impede the.
If you, the page 9 of 10 and number 18.
Any traffic hazard or nuisance?
So that's what the new zoning ordinance would read.
Well, what about, interfere with the town's ability to maintain the road?
Town can't maintain the road, it's a hazard.
Right. Or it's a nuisance. It could fit into either
Okay.
category.
All right,
Good, okay.
good enough.
Okay.
Good enough.
I can change the explanation however you want, so.
I think it's fine.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve. Did you open public comment?
yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a
Make
witness.
a motion to approve
Uh-oh.
amendment 15 as drafted.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Yeah, bye.
Capello, aye. Suchi, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan,
Driscoll. Aye. Okay.
Is it me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
but
okay, that's fine.
if you're not ready, I can
No, I
tee
can do
up
it.
here.
Are you in favor of excuse me, amendment 16 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? amend the minimum lot size provisions to replace references to hydric A soils with poorly or very poorly drained soils, and to clarify that within minimum lot sizes are required to be increased due to the number of dwelling units under a common roof, that those increased lots must consist of additional contiguous uplands.
Um, Not defined, but,
Public comment.
yeah, open public comment. I was still on the word. Close-
Okay,
Oh, you're
nope,
doing
nope,
that?
wait a minute,
Oh,
wait a
all
minute.
right.
Not so quick, John.
We're on a roll there.
I know,
Yeah.
the turning green. Here, it might, I think the battery is dying on that one. Apparently.
All I'm asking for is a little clarification on it. Brian Whedon, 63 Lincoln Pond Road. So I'm asking for a little bit of clarification on this, as I think that the law has changed since certain people have done certain things. So I figured, like, I calculated the area, he had less than so many feet to develop. So I figured a little over, 90,000 square feet is what I figured. But he's put 2 buildings and he's including the wetland soils, like, that's not attached to the dry, you know, the dry land, upland soils. He's including that as a figure, you know, it's all cumulative.
Well, see, that's what the old regulations allow you to use anything that was wetland soils as long as it wasn't hydric A, the very poorly drained. And they're changing it to make it so you can't use any of the wetland soils.
It has to be
60,000.
connected now.
Well, it has, the 60,000 has to be all upland soils, where before you could have hydric, B soils, which were your poorly drained. Plus they made it contiguous on the upland. So this kind of addresses the issue from your area of town.
Okay, it's all I have.
Shows we do listen.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, closing public comment. Discussion by the board.
Make a motion to approve Amendment 16 as drafted.
Second,
Roll call.
Nap aye.
Happy LOI.
Tessie, aye?
Alan, aye.
Okay, number 17, we voted out, I believe, during our little meeting the other day.
Okay, when I brought this forward before, if you read what the definition was for the mixed use.
no, we're the one before.
Number,
This one right
17.
here, remember where, like, we were trying to change it
Oh.
to refer back and.
So if you go right now, it refers you back to 4.2.1. So if you change it and you refer it back to 4.2.2, 4.2.2 refers you to 4.2.1. So it just makes you go through an extra step to go to the same place.
sounds like government.
Yeah, so if you got your regular zoning with you, you go to that section, it tells you to go to 4.2.1 now.
Is this 17?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
confused.
So the way that the attorney had, done the language, it's actually in the backup documentation, it is number 20, because she, on some of them, she combined. So the numbering's off between that and the warrant, but it refers to number 20.
Bless you.
So I disagree with this because when you look at the proposal that I brought forward that we voted on last night, the village district will no longer be the same lot size as general residential and neighborhood residential.
Yeah, we can't.
Well, that wasn't here when we were looking at this stuff here. This was
No,
all,
we didn't know that.
We can't assume yours is gonna pass either.
Right.
you can't assume it's not going to either.
Yeah, I know.
The only way it wouldn't is if the board struck down bringing it before and then the voters decide not to. But this kind of leads back to the fact why I was pushing and it owned last night my failure to get it forward. Because if it went as a petitioned warrant article, it takes the power out of the hands of this board to neglect it, which then strikes it from the rules or from the opportunity to go before the voters.
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about it. This is written for Wade.
So it makes you go through one extra step to look at the same thing if it fails. What's the big deal? Honestly, it just says, go here. Yup, go here. If it changes, it's no big deal. If the board will move this forward at the petition of the voters who requested it, and the voters are in favor of voting for it, then by leaving it as such means there's no harm, no foul. It directs them to the right place in the regulation for it. And it means we don't create a conflict in our regulation should it pass or not pass.
Okay. You're recommending we don't approve it.
But almost either way, there's going to be a conflict.
No, it wouldn't
No.
be. It wouldn't be, because if the other one comes in effect like his, it's gonna refer you to the right section.
Right.
If his doesn't pass, it's gonna refer you to a section that then you refer you again
Back
to the
to
next section.
But there's no harm, no foul in that.
Correct. But right now, the way it was without his stuff in here, it was like you were creating an extra step for no reason. But if that does pass, then there's a reason for the extra step.
Right.
So you want this in?
I think we want to make a motion on,
Did you open public comment?
Oh, open public comment, close public comment.
I make a motion, we vote on this amendment?
I should read it first.
Sure.
Are you in favor of amendment number 17 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Amend the standards for regional commercial district to establish minimum lot size in new residential dwelling units to be equivalent to those required in the village district rather than those in the general residential and neighborhood residential districts. Explanation. The proposed changes addresses lot sizes to be equivalent to those required in the village.
I make a motion, we vote on this amendment,
Okay,
move forward and vote on this amendment.
I'll second it.
Comment?
Oh, sure, please.
By voting on it as it's drafted here, it strikes the general residential and neighborhood and only leaves in village. So that's why I say if you look at it as
Would you like to remove something in this?
I would like to retain the 4.2.1.
Why don't we vote on this first, then see how you feel? I have a feeling you've already sold them.
Yeah.
You sold your point.
Oh, okay.
I think you're okay.
Roll
Nay.
call?
I'm still confused on this. About
Andy,
What
your
makes it
argument was to keep it, and now they're keeping it and you're voting against it.
No,
I'm
my
not- I'm not
argument's-
following.
Because he
Because-
has written.
No,
Because-
the thing
yeah.
says change it. He's voting against changing it.
Oh, the motion is to change.
The motion is
Right.
The motion is to
Adopt
vote
it.
on this
As
motion.
written, yeah.
He's saying no.
No,
Yeah.
because I believe it needs to remain as
As
it is
is.
currently
As is.
drafted.
A no vote means leave it as is.
Leave it as is. Everybody
Oh,
concur?
okay. So it's the way you presented your vote. You
Yeah.
confused me the way you presented
Said
your
we
vote.
vote.
I thought you were bringing forward what was written.
I was bringing forward for a vote on what was written.
So if it
Right,
gets,
so he says yes, and you want to bring forward what's written.
Yeah, he's
Right,
saying,
he's
he's
saying
saying
So
no.
that.
he's
He's
saying
saying
no,
no.
he
Because-
doesn't want to bring it forward.
Because if you bring it forward by scratching out 4.2.1 and going to 4.2.2 of the ordinance,
Yeah.
you bypass 4.2.1, which is your general residential, neighborhood residential districts in place of your village district.
it's accomplishing exactly what we,
I'm
But-
bringing
but-
forward the vote, John. I'm not saying.
But the thing is, then if you go to this one, it refers you back to 4.2.1. So if your thing doesn't pass, it's still going to bring you to that same spot, which is the whole
Right.
thing we just got done talking about.
right, that's why we're voting on this.
Yes.
You'll get it.
Andy, vote. You said no, right?
So I think I got this, means I want to say yes.
I think you want to say nay.
I think I want to say nay. Okay, I'm going to say nay.
Suchi, nay.
Tessie or nay?
Howard, nay.
Driscoll, nay.
So it was all nays.
So it's all nays
Nays
for,
That means
across
it's
the
not
so
board.
that means we're not bringing forward 17.
Okay, just as we discussed earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
Sometimes we
I'll
get
do
there in a
18.
twisted
You're right. Number 18, are you in favor of amendment number 18 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows? Remove commercial from the uses permitted in the mixed use structure.
I
John
had
had,
come forward with that because I thought it said originally industrial and it said institutional. But you really want to keep the commercial because your commercials are your storefronts. So your
Right.
storefronts are supposed to be on the main floor and your residence is above. So you want to keep commercial in there. And I was thinking we wanted to take industrial out, but institutional is fine underneath. So we probably just take this thing right out of here and just leave it the way it was,
Yeah,
not even bring nothing forward.
Yeah, institutional was under commercial, so that's where it kind
So
of.
we could eliminate it at this point.
Yeah, eliminate it completely. There was a mistake on my part. I thought it said, I didn't want to have like a contractor storage yard with living space above it. When it said, when I thought it said, you know,
Make a motion.
industrial, yeah.
Make
public
a motion to
comment?
remove 18.
Hearing no public
This one I
comment.
get.
You just have to open and close public comment.
Oh, I just did.
Well, he was doing something over there.
Public comment,
To,
no public
Motion to vote
comment,
on.
closing public comment.
to
Okay,
be
thank you.
consistent with what we
We all
are,
say no.
Right.
Just like we did before.
right.
He's gonna
I'm gonna
make,
do the neater and easier way,
Did
so
you
everybody
make-
follow.
somebody
I make a
second?
motion to remove amendment 18.
okay,
That's good.
is there a second?
Second.
Aye to the removal.
Wait, so Bob in the room.
He's just writing it down.
Oh, my God. I feel like I'm in the preschool.
So if you motion to approve it as is, we would all vote nay, and then that would strike it from coming forward.
Okay,
He
so-
made a motion to remove it,
So it's
So we
yay.
gotta-
so it's a yay vote.
Right, want it removed.
Right. So
Okay.
Capiello, yes.
Masucci, yes.
Tessie or yay?
Howard, yeah.
Driscoll, yeah.
We should do it consistently.
All right.
One way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
All right,
We've done it
Last-
both ways. Are we happy?
It's different way.
First round.
zoning
yes.
article, is amendment 19 to the Barrington zoning ordinance as recommended by the planning board as follows. To delete the definition of accessory building, and the explanation for that is the definition of accessory building is redundant to that of accessory use.
Open public comment? Hearing none, closing public comment. Discussion by the board.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment 19.
Roll call.
Knapp, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Masucci, aye.
Tessie or I?
Howard, aye.
We only do this once a year. Driscoll, aye.
I'll give you the
If,
rest.
if the board would entertain it at the
we-
beginning of this,
Can we do it under other business, just to keep it
Oh.
clean?
warrant article.
But they're not the proposed,
You're right, it's
Planning
not a
board.
proposed one.
so that's fine.
Okay.
I'm okay doing it
Okay.
wherever
you.
makes you happy, Vanessa.
If you could do it under other business,
Sure.
that when I do the meeting minutes, I can keep it straight too.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
No.
No.
You can.
Not
Wouldn't be
even-
appropriate.
Not even 7:30.
Wouldn't be appropriate.
Falling off their chairs. Okay, we in new business?
M- Mr. Knapp would like to have other business.
Other
Discuss
business.
other business.
Do we have to vote to give him permission? No, okay.
I'll be quick
Go ahead.
and brief. In our current zoning articles under 6.2.2 parents 8, 6.2, it's in conservation subdivisions and it would be on page 24.
24.
Parents 8. This says common open spaces may be used for individual or community water and sewage systems required to service the proposed development. I'm proposing moving 6.2.2 parents 8 to 6.2.2 parents 9, which is common open spaces may not be used for, and it would be wells and septic should not be in the common open space, is a use that should be part of their build-out yield plan for a common use in a open space subdivision.
Well, the yield plan, which, I'm just talking here. So the yield plan is going to be based on a conventional subdivision. So once they get the number of lots and they come forward with a conservation subdivision, if they can put their wells on the open space and the septics, that could make the lots there on, instead of doing like they did here, 1 acre lots, they could make them so they're doing like those cluster things where everything's all grouped together, and then you got the open space around it. So it's almost like you're making them keep the lots bigger, so they got room to put a well and a septic on the individual lots.
No, they can still do a well and a
You
septic.
could put it on the open space.
Right, they can still do a well and a septic, they just have to allocate the space for it, and it does not count toward their open space.
So
is
John-
So
that
take
just-
so you got your lot, and you're saying take a chunk that would be open space.
No, that would be what they would develop. And it does not count toward,
Like
they
an
don't get
ancillary
to, they
piece of
don't
land,
get,
no?
because right now what happens is their goal is to get to a percentage of open space, to say, look, I've got this much open space.
Right.
And they get to count their wells and their septics in on that open space, as opposed to being counted as part of your building lot that you're developing.
Definitely septic shouldn't be. I don't have a problem with wells, but septic shouldn't be. Yeah, the septics can't.
Well, what happened, if you look at, it depends on how they did them. So you got different ways to do your conservation subdivision.
Right, well, okay.
So
if
you
they're in a
got your
cluster
individual
one.
lots back here. So all your individual lots, they always put their wells and septics on their own lots. They don't
Right.
even go to the open space. But if you start doing cluster groups, you got your little grouping, and then you got your open space around it, and they put their wells and septics in that open space that's around those cluster
Because
groups.
there's no personal space.
Yeah, but if you take this out, then they can't do that. You're forcing everybody to go to individual lots instead of cluster groups.
No, you
They
can,
can
you can
still
still, you
cluster
can still do
group.
it combined, but you can't do it in the open space. You know what I mean? So whatever, whatever developable land you have, you have to use some of that for your combined septic.
But in a
and
cluster
wells.
group, there, you wouldn't have
Well,
individual
wow.
pieces of square footage.
What they're trying to say is, we might have to relook at how the whole thing's written, because
Right,
the cluster groups, it's like you have your own little spots, and that's all open space all around you.
Right.
That's how it's, that's
You
how.
have the house,
I'd have to go back. So,
That's
but what
not-
he's saying is, you got your cluster group and you got your space around it, and then you got open space around the outside of that. He was saying the cluster groups would have to be, the area around the cluster group wouldn't be part of the open space.
I understand what he's saying.
In the space where you put your
I
combined
thought
septic
that-
and
Mm.
It
wells.
allows them to,
And I was,
Work
here's all
the
your
open
space,
space
here's all your
number.
space, and this is your part, a little house. Everything else is open space.
that's
Does
not
anybody
how
bring
those
their-
are designed.
Yeah, anybody got their subdivision regs with them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
I
your
do.
subdivision reg has a drawing showing the different groupings. It's not in zoning, but it's in your subdivision.
I have it right here.
I didn't bring the subdivision. I thought we were just gonna talk about what I had this on.
Okay, let's see what that is.
So,
Okay, I've seen these drawings. Where are they?
They have the drawings of the cluster groups. Recommended. What was that?
construction standards. Conventional versus cluster subdivisions on page 42.
Of subdivision?
Two.
But where
Under
are the,
conservation subdivision,
but where are the drawings? Did they take that out of this version?
The
no, the drawings
No,
are
they're
on
on-
page 42.
They're on 37.
37?
No, they're on 42.
Not in my version. 42 and 43.
Depends on what year you got. There was some amendments, and there might be, if you
You got
got
the-
one year or another. year,
June
it's all
7th,
over.
2022.
New ones.
Oh, I got August XX
Most
2023.
recent one I was given,
I agree with you.
because I update my book every time I get the documents.
Then maybe you weren't here when it was updated. I can get you.
What
a
does
new
yours,
copy.
does yours say August XX?
It should be August first, 2023 or August XX.
They keep
August
August.
XX.
August
It was not
1st,
given that.
2023.
But when you look at what is the comparison of a conventional
Oh,
versus
okay.
cluster
Just maybe there
design,
was a change, that's why I was asking.
the cluster design,
Well, big change for him. Okay, 37.
Well, let me, I think I can make it even easier, Andy. Basically, you can still do the exact same design as you're doing now, but wherever you put it, you can't count it as, you can't count it as part of your open
All
space.
right.
right, you can't count it as.
That's
part of
all,
your
that's the
open
only
space.
difference. You can still do whatever you want, but wherever you put that, no longer counts as open space. That's all Andy's saying.
Right,
Does that
so
make it simpler?
are
Yeah, I
there
was looking at this one.
unexpected
I'm
Well,
thinking of this with the no
It's just,
lot
it's,
lines.
it's
In other
just the
words,
way
just
that
little
the
houses there
subdivision
and
thing shows
everything
it. It
is
shows
open
it all
space.
as part of your open space when you do your little cluster groups.
But it doesn't show that. Nowhere in any of it does it designate any of that as open space. It just calls it, the difference between a well-designed and a poorly designed cluster space, and it says one of them reference, larger cluster group has interior open space visible from the street. And what it shows, for example, is a center island as that open space.
Okay, so I was looking at, so if you go to that, the one that says figure 2D,
Look at 2D, yeah,
so
2D.
2D shows the whole thing like it's all open space.
all
And then you
open
got the
space.
individual lots in them, and it's not breaking the area. Now, if you go to 2C, then they got like a group that would be non-open space, I guess that little drawed area with the houses in it, then you would have the open space on the outside of it.
But even if you look at 2D, it says a large cluster group has interior open space visible from the street. That's all it defines as the open space, is that little component in the center of that land. It does not reference that the whole lot itself is being classified as open space. It references one small central point in the center as the open space.
Okay, every lot has direct access to the views of the open space.
And the open
comment
space
on the
is
bottom.
that central part. So rather than
You-
putting it into which will impact their yield plan and the amount that they can put in there, right now, what they're doing is saying, I can put a well and a septic in there, and I can stuff that back in the open space, and I don't have to give up anything for it.
Well, it doesn't affect the
It
yield
doesn't
plan.
change the yield plan at all,
Yield plan. Yield plan is individual lots with.
and it's based
the
on a
lots.
regular subdivision.
But
yeah.
it will ultimately change what they can do, because
Yeah.
it changes, because it right now, they don't have to account for that they can stuff it back into the open
Reduces the amount of
space.
open space available where you put the septic in the well. So it just makes it a little more difficult to squeeze it in there. Yeah. I mean,
But that's gonna be in this conservation lots, not the yield plan.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm,
Conservation,
right, that's
conservation,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about, is the conservation side of it.
And it doesn't change the design at all. It just.
You're not
it changes whether
conserving
you-
it if
just
you
changes
develop
whether you
on
can
it.
count it as open space or not. That's all it does. You know what I mean? You can still do whatever you want, but wherever you put it, you can't count that as open space anymore. That's all it does. So it's, I don't think it's a big change.
I don't think so either, it just says, you can't cram it all in here and then and put a well and a septic and call it open space.
Yeah.
You've used that space.
Yeah, you can't put a building here and this is built accessory to the building, so don't count it.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
It's new business, any more new business?
Well, you gotta vote. later,
Yeah,
you
I'm like,
gotta vote.
I've
That's
made a
exactly what I
proposal.
I got new business too.
I'm looking
No, you
for,
want to?
Yeah, I got
Let's
one
vote on
too.
Andy's.
I'm looking for a second to the motion to change that.
You
Can
might wanna,
Can you reread what your thing is, if you don't mind,
That
please?
it is to change 6.2.2 parents 8,
Right.
and by moving it to 6.2.9, which is not allowed use.
But keep the language as written, just moving
Yep,
it.
just
Okay.
move it into that section.
Second it.
you gotta take public comment on it too.
Yeah, open public comment, close public comment. No, Open public comment, close public comment. Who was seconded, is a roll call?
Wait, who first it?
I motioned it,
And then,
Donna
second.
Oh,
seconded
it
it,
didn't count because she was red.
Stop it.
Roll call.
Nap aye.
Capella, aye.
This is, yeah.
Test your eye.
All right.
Driscoll, aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you have one?
I have one as well. Right now, when you do a subdivision, you are allowed 2 backlots. Subdivision. To me, it doesn't seem logical that we have a frontage requirement, but you're allowed to do a subdivision and create and reduce your frontage and get 2 backlots. That just seems to me to be contrary to the spirit of the intent of the frontage requirement. So I would, and that language is in subdivision 11.2.4.
Subdivision, that changed. That's something you do as a different area. Gotta look at zoning today.
Oh, zoning?
So,
Just zoning.
When can I change this?
this, well, the backlots are listed in the zone.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you eliminate backlots
Where
in
is it?
zoning, you would have to go back and change your subdivision, take it out too.
No, I wouldn't eliminate them altogether. My language would be backlots not permitted for 10 lot or greater subdivisions. And then,
So that'd be a subdivision change, which is a different than your zoning change. This doesn't go to the voters. Subdivision changes, you guys hold you two hearings and change your subdivision.
And we're gonna work that on February, so if you wouldn't mind giving me that now, I can pop it
well,
over.
before we go, I just want to get
Okay,
this,
a consensus on
Because you might want to change some subdivision rules after the zoning's
Yeah.
changed to make sure your new subdivision rules balance your new subdivision.
so I picked 10 lots. I mean, to me, it's a big subdivision. Don't let them create, small frontage and then put 2 backlots in. It just provides more, more density, which I don't think is, if you're doing 10 lots and more, you do the frontage, put in 200 feet of frontage, don't do 50 feet, and put in 2 backlots. That's the concept.
A question.
Yep.
And John may be able to answer this, because when you talk about it in the zoning ordinance, it's under 4.1.3 backlots. And by changing it in the subdivision, it doesn't address the zoning ordinance where it says for residential subdivisions, up to 2 backlots may be allowed, notwithstanding the frontage requirements specific to the table of the dimensional standards. And then it goes on to talk about the table of dimensional standards. If you don't address it in the zoning ordinance here, you can go change it there, but they still have a right to use it under our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, okay, so I want to change it there too, so I do want to change it in zoning.
What do you want to change?
Under
4.1.
Yeah. I'm not gonna be able to remember it.
4.1.3, there we go.
All right, backlots not permitted for 10 lot or greater subdivisions. And then,
Well, let's, wait a minute, guess who we're gonna put
So
it.
it would say, you want me to help you with that?
sure,
So it'll say for residential subdivisions,
Hold on.
up to 2 backlots may be allowed to a limit of 10 lots, notwithstanding the frontage requirements specified in the table of dimensional standards.
Your microphone's on, right?
Yes,
I can get
ma'am.
it later. Okay, thank you. You talk really fast. Okay.
and then I think the concern would be, what do they do? Do they do something down the road, further subdivide down the road? So I would add some additional language where backlots not permitted for lots without required frontage that were created as part of a 10-lot subdivision or greater as of April 1st, 2024. So I would, if you created the lots after this rule went in place, you're not allowed to subdivide them later on and create backlots.
The attorney might weigh in on that about this board impacting the rights of a future board, but that would be, we'll let the attorney make that decision. I'm not gonna make it.
They can change it down the road. Any board can change it down the road.
Yeah.
No, what I'm not saying is change it. Someone comes back in and they're doing less than that. Can this decision that you guys, a subdivision that was created, some guy comes in 10 years later and says, this is what I want to do. Can a board from 10 years previous hold, handcuff the person coming forward with his lot that he bought?
Remember the.
We did that one on, was it Hemlock over?
Yeah, right.
You
we
didn't
looked
do
at
it,
an
though.
old- No, we
Also,
looked
if
at
the
an
They
old
subdivision-
gave,
deed.
wouldn't allow
They
them
gave
to
up.
subdivide, that's what I meant.
If the subdivision.
Because it
happens
was
now,
done 20 years ago.
If we
the-
approve the
prohibition.
subdivision and put in the condition that it's based on today's rules, it's binding.
Until another planning board changes it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and
the
then-
decision's made now.
Well, that decision,
You
that-
accepted you took the you accepted the subdivision plan with these conditions.
Right.
It's bound, it's forever.
Right. That was sort of my question
John has
last
a
night when we
comment.
had.
so the one that, like on Hemlock, the attorney basically said that as a board, you have a right to make your decision at that time. So you decided to uphold that condition.
Right.
It wasn't binding that you had to do it. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But no, I disagree with you. It was binding on that because they gave up the conservation component of it for the larger lot sizes to do it. So, which meant they handcuffed themselves in the way that it was done. They do not have a right to go back and
They
remove
had a
that.
choice.
But the attorney
The board
basically
gave them
said the board, at that meeting, the board had a right to make a decision. So the future board might have a right to make a decision too. So I mean, you could put it in there, but I'm not saying, I'm just saying the attorney might weigh in and make an issue with that. I'm just letting
But
you guys
remember,
know.
John, the point of the applicant and the attorney at that point is did the board act appropriately back then? That was really the point that they made.
Right.
They did something they weren't allowed to do.
The subdivider made the
And
choice.
what happened was, and the attorney agreed, if the applicant offers more than is required, that's still binding.
Correct.
You know, if they said that, well, I'm willing to do more than the rules require, they can't go back and say later on, oh, I want what the rules require. Once they've agreed to do that, they're stuck. And that was the base.
But the attorney also said that as a board, you guys could decide not to hold them to that. So
I don't ever remember the attorney making that comment. Her comment
Gave
was,
the option.
yeah, she did.
She kind
I
of,
remember
She did.
her
That was
comment
part
being-
of the whole thing. I mean,
Because I remember you dug the original,
I think
But
that
you
was-
it wouldn't have gone in front of you. If she said that you couldn't do it, it wouldn't have gone in
Strong
front of you.
About how to interpret it. I mean, for me, that was like, oh, these people really wanted this to happen back in the 1980s. I'll honor that. I mean, it directed my thinking, so that was valuable.
it was a quid pro quo. They gave up this to get this, which is what made it
They
a
wanted
binding
bigger lots
agreement.
because they didn't have to do conservation
Right.
land at all.
That is what made it a binding agreement. If they could have done more than what was required or had larger lots, but because they did a quid pro quo to give up the conservation requirement, that bound their hands.
but even if they didn't do, to me, it's still binding anyway. If I agree to do more than, for no reason other than the goodness of my heart, if I make an agreement that says, you know, whether I'm getting anything for it or not,
Mhm.
if I'm going over and above, that's a deal. You've made the deal. You're stuck with the deal. Now, down the road, you may have to change your heart, but too bad, you made the deal. So to me, whether you got anything for it or not, if you agreed to it, you agreed to it. It's a done deal. So I don't think that it's a fact, it's quid pro quo, to me, didn't have any effect on my decision. It was the fact that you made the deal, and that's the deal. You know, whether you got anything for it or not, whether you did it against your heart, whether you did to appease your neighbors, I don't care. That deal's a deal.
But that I remember specifically that being the argument with the attorney is because there was a quid pro quo on it.
I don't remember that.
That bound,
And when I looked at all the deeds,
I don't know that.
about half of them had a restriction.
Yes.
With the registry of deeds. So
Yep.
they could not subdivide.
right.
And the other
And
half
the
is
assumption,
Deed zone.
and the assumption was they all should have been on there. But the lawyers took
Right,
this
they
stuff
only
sometimes.
did part of it, it was they were
Yeah.
building it out, but
Right.
that was the agreement.
It took 10 or
For
15
the,
years.
I'm gonna try to get us back on track.
All right.
please. For the back lots, so I'm hearing two proposed new,
The
Um,
residential for residential subdivisions, up to 2 backlots may be allowed to a limit of 10 lots, notwithstanding the frontage requirements specified in the table of dimensional standards.
I would say for 10-lot subdivision.
Because you make it sound like you could do 2 lots 10 times.
Right, for up
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
sorry, the
10
way to
lots.
say it would be for up to a 10-lot subdivision.
do
Subdivision.
we, and you already opened public comment for that?
2 lot.
Yeah,
I kinda
opening
lost track.
public comment.
Residential subdivision.
Closing public comment.
Residential subdivisions,
And
2
I added another
Well,
thing
but,
where
are you adding
Or
to
up
his,
to,
or are you gonna
yes.
add a different one?
I
Okay,
said that-
thank
All
you.
right.
Sorry.
I said that, you know, once they're permitted, you can't do it in the future. So you're locked in. So you can't subdivide in the future.
No
Once you,
back lot can be re-subdivided.
but
So
no
would
more
you like
back
to
lot
do
can
that
be
as 2 separate
re-subdivided in the
things?
future.
It'd have to be two
Beyond
separate.
April 1st.
That's what I thought.
Back lot, it would be no front lot can be no back lot can be created.
No, because if you got a lot, what he's saying is if you did a back lot. Oh, yeah, your
It's
front lot.
a
can't-
front lot, you can't create a
Right.
back lot.
So a back lot cannot be created on a lot that was created after March of this year.
April 1.
Some-
March of
someday.
2024,
Whatever, yes.
or whatever that date
Yeah.
is. the
As part of a 10-lot subdivision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10 lot
Right.
or larger
The larger
subdivision.
subdivision.
okay, that's one,
So-
okay. I just
So
wanna
you
make sure
can't
when I
take a
write this
200
up, I understand what you
Frontage
guys are
lot,
getting at.
and then make 2 lots out of it by
Right.
doing a back lot out of it.
Okay,
Okay,
public comment on this?
just
Addition?
for,
Hearing none, closing public comment. All right, the board,
I guess, vote if you
Yeah.
wanna move those,
move both, separately?
it sounds like it's a together thing.
Okay.
You can let the attorney figure out you read them as separate ones or together.
Right, I just have to draft something for her and then she
Yep.
can do it from there, but,
For the purpose of this vote, it's
It's
for
been
the whole
motioned
thing.
but
by
for this
Ron.
vote,
I will second the
Okay.
vote.
A roll call.
Nat, aye.
Capello, aye.
Masucci, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan, aye.
Driscoll, aye. Okay, good. I think that's a good one. Excuse me.
Better, I don't have any more.
Do you have more?
Even better, I don't have any more.
No, put your thinking cap on.
Is there anything else before you
Come
guys?
back on the 23rd with a couple.
I have a
Mr.
few,
Chairman,
but I-
you just
I'm
have to
holding
motion
mine.
to adjourn if
Oh,
there's nothing else.
Anything else? Any
I'd like to make
comments?
a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Bob.
I will second that motion. Sorry.
I'll third,
Roll
I'll,
call.
Donna do it.
I'll third that.
Yep, Donna did it. Roll call.
Aye.
We're gonna vote yeah.
Gotta turn the lights
Capello,
off so you
aye.
can stay.
Masucci, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Thank you. And at 7:51, we are closing the meeting. Thank you.
Thank
Turning
you.
off my microphone.
It's been a lot of fun.
Vanessa, we didn't need to talk about this housing plan chapter stuff that you had put in our packets.